members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, fellow panelists. I'm very tempted to comment on the comments by the honourable member from the opposition, but I'll restrain myself. The topic, of course, is Fiji's economic growth, benefiting all Fijians. I think we'll all agree that economic growth itself does not mean equality in its shared growth. Everybody agrees with that. The reality of all economies around the world is that when the economy grows, there would be disparities within the economy itself. Now, we'll put up the slide a bit sooner than I expected, but we'll come to that later. So the issue then is, how do we address the fundamental issue about addressing any possible inequalities that may stem from economic growth? And the way to do that is normally because the market itself does not intervene, the market itself does not equally distribute the growth equally. So the idea is that governments tend to intervene by way of laws, by way of what we call social policy measures. In Fiji's case, of course, we have a constitution that is very much focused on socio-economic rights. Now, by having socio-economic rights, I'll just very quickly tell you, the right to education, right to economic participation, right to work and a just minimum wage, right to reasonable access to transportation, right to housing and sanitation, right to adequate food and water, right to social security schemes, right to health, environmental rights, rights for children, rights of persons with disabilities. Now, these rights are all enforceable rights. So essentially, if a citizen of the country believes that those rights of theirs, which are enshrined in the Constitution, is being breached, then they have the ability to enforce that right. Now, these rights are, of course, progressively realized, and not many countries in the world actually have that, where you have a constitution that says that you have the ability to ensure that your citizens have rights to these socio-economic rights. Recently, there have been numerous studies. There's a Palmer ratio, there's the other ratios called, the Hoover index, the Palmer ratio, and of course the Gini coefficient. These are methodologies of measuring how unequal a society is. So as far as Gini coefficient is concerned, if 0 is your target, so if your Gini coefficient continues to drop, that means the inequality in that country is decreasing. Now, if you look at the recent study that was carried out by the World Bank, that actually sets out the countries where inequality is actually increasing and inequalities that are decreasing. Now, for example, you can see countries like India and China, which has had phenomenal growth rates. In those countries, notwithstanding those phenomenal growth rates, you are actually seeing an increase in the inequality. So the green line actually indicates what was the level of inequality. And then the peak of that bar shows how inequality has increased. So you look at China, you look at Papua New Guinea, India, various other countries that's there. Countries like even Australia and New Zealand, where the inequality is in fact increasing. There are a few countries where inequalities have decreased. Philippines has dropped slightly, Malaysia a bit more, Thailand a lot more. Fiji is next where inequality has actually decreased. Nepal has also decreased, and Mongolia and Korea. These are the areas in the selected Asian countries. We are Fiji, like the other Pacific countries, grouped with the Asian grouping. So inequality actually in those countries that are highlighted, including Fiji, has in fact decreased. Now, the Human Development Index was actually talked about by Mr. Haraj. Even according to that, the Human Development Index, Fiji has actually done a lot better than what it was. Now, you look at things like, for example, the doctors per 100,000 people. Now, I've got the figures here that in fact indicate that the number of doctors per 100,000 people, in 2010, there were 38.3 doctors per 100,000 Fijians. In 2015, there's 82 doctors per 100,000 Fijians. Obviously, so, this is not the best position to be in, but it has in fact improved. And I think as a couple of the speakers highlighted, the ability to address and the need to address the benefit of economic growth is an ongoing project. It's an ongoing project because every country must always work, even the Nordic countries that may be quite wealthy, there are still issues of inequality within those countries. Now, how has Fiji been addressing those issues? Obviously, Fiji has been addressing those issues by a number of socio-economic measures that have been undertaken. For example, the various taxation schemes that have been introduced. They are there to, in fact, what we call the redistribution of wealth. So, for example, STT, or service turnover tax, the environmental levy. These are targeted at specific sectors in the economy Or, for example, if you go and eat at an expensive restaurant, you'll actually pay the STT and you pay the environmental levy. But if you can eat at an ordinary takeaway outlet, generally owned by local, you won't pay the STT, you won't pay the environmental levy. Because generally low-income people go and eat there and we don't want them to pay. And generally the people who run those businesses actually have smaller businesses. So this is how you redistribute wealth, because the richer go and eat at the more expensive places. When you collect that money, you actually use that wealth to actually pay for services, for example, increase legal aid. So we talked about, for example, the growth of domestic violence in Fiji. These issues need to be addressed. So we have now a 24-hour call center, we have youth programs, we have consumer protection program that now, we've got a helpline for consumer protection. We have minimum wages that have been included in Fiji. Now, a lot of people think that minimum wage in Fiji is for all employees. No, it's not. It's about the unskilled employees. There are 8 wages council that have their own set of minimum wages. We have, of course, equal distribution of land lease money. This is a very critical issue. You may have heard in the press just a couple of days ago, the Prime Minister announced there's something like about in excess of $9 million, sorry, $12 million that is now in savings for Itoke children who are members of landowning units. That's there for them when they turn 18. Now, this is a small social buffer for them, and a way of empowering them with that ability to those funds. We, of course, the judiciary has been expanded, the highlighting of the FNPF, of course, is one of the major issues. We've invested in roads, water, electricity. There's more connections in electricity than ever before in only a very short period of time. The ability to connect roads, villages to markets is also empowering. It reduces inequality because you have accessibility to services in various other areas that need people to be able to participate equally within the economy. So I'll be very brief, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm hoping there'll be a lot of questions. But the point is that reducing inequality or passing on the benefits of economic growth is an ongoing project. And the way to address that project is to ensure that you have right policies in place, and those policies, ladies and gentlemen, need to be sustainable. They cannot be one-off policies, and those policies, ladies and gentlemen, need to address everybody's needs on the basis of need, on the basis of need for them, not on the basis of ethnicity, not on the basis of religion, not on the basis of province, but on the basis of a common equal citizenry where people's needs are addressed who actually need them. Thank you.